Hey guys, welcome back. Fast Monty's Garage. We're almost there. If you're just joining us for the first time, we rebuilt the motor and we put a new Tremec TKO in the GTO. So we have a few steps left. The headers, the exhaust, miscellaneous stuff. But I wanted to take the time to explain my thought process on my headers. And this is applicable to anyone who wants to put long tube headers in your car, because it's going to be a challenge. I can almost guarantee it. So it doesn't matter what make or model of old school muscle car you have. Long tube headers come with their own set of challenges. So you have to make a decision. Do you want the extra horsepower? How much do you want that 20 extra horsepower or so? And how bad do you want to get the headers to fit? So here's my point. All cars are not created equal. We were talking about 50 years ago. And so no matter who the manufacturer is, let's call it Doug's headers or Hedman headers or Hooker headers, and they have a 69 GTO to mock up their headers, that's on their car. Almost guaranteed it's not going to work on your GTO because I'm going through that same problem, and I'm going to walk through the thought process that I had. And if you're thinking about long tube headers, you'll understand what goes into putting headers in and what to look out for. And that's why I'm here. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Be sure to subscribe because you want to see me get this thing rolling again. Now let's get started. So what you're going to need is headers, of course, gasket. So I have two different gaskets here with me today. This is a Mr. gasket, Ultra Seal gasket, which is what I was using. I am switching to what's called a Remflex gasket. Thank you, John. I know you're watching. So a Remflex gasket is guaranteed not to leak. It's pretty thick, but it compresses down. And when we do our mock-up for your headers, you want to get your gasket. So this gasket, this compresses to half its thickness. This is half its thickness. So I'm going to use this to mock up today. So those of you guys paying attention. The other thing you need, especially if you have aluminum heads, is you need antifreeze. Not antifreeze. Anti-seize to put on your fasteners. And you also need to make a decision on what you're after. So let me give you an example. I want my car really low. Now, anyone has seen long tube headers. The headers hang out pretty low underneath the car and have flanges on them. I went to a whole nother level, which you guys who know me know I get carried away. So check out this picture. This was the very first install I did with these headers. And you can tell the alignment didn't match the transmission openings or the transmission brace humps, and I had to make some adjustments. So I took a 90-degree elbow, I cut it in half, and I welded it together, cut off the collector on the header, and then I also went with a ball joint on the header instead of using a flange. So you can see that I cut the collector off here, which is normally straight and has a flange, and I added a ball. And there's the mating ball on the exhaust. And it goes on like that, and there's a clamp around it. But what that does, it gives you, I'm exaggerating, but it gives you a little bit of freedom on your alignment. If you have flanges, you have to be perfectly aligned, which can be frustrating. So there's that. I went to the nth degree. The difficult side was the driver's side header. Check this picture out. The offset was far greater, and I had to do some trig to make sure that lines up correctly with the hole. And so kids, stay in school. Math does actually work. Anyway, now when it comes to fitting your headers, that's a whole nother problem. So these are ceramic coated, as you can tell. I originally bought ceramic coated headers, and they didn't fit. I had to modify them. So luckily I went through Summit Racing, I returned them, and then I got raw steel headers. I actually got 3 different sets. I got Hedman headers, Doug's headers, and I can't remember the other, maybe Hooker headers. all of them fit differently. So the best of the three at that time was Doug's headers. So this is the passenger side header. It worked fine except for that alignment. It didn't have any interference. I didn't have to modify any tubes. And then once I did all this welding work, I sent it off for ceramic coating. That was me. That's what I wanted to do. You don't have to do that. You can ceramic paint them yourself. So the issue is the driver's side. The driver's side required me to dimple. See, I took a hammer to it. In a couple different spots. And one here. And then I sent it out for jet coating. Now the other issue I had was I didn't realize my engine wasn't quite level the first time I put these in. If you guys know my story, I've never restored a car before. This is my first time. So the first time I put these in, this is what it was adjusted for. Later I figured out how to level your engine and all that stuff. I'm going to put these in. Actually, I don't really need to put them in because, as you can tell, this is where it hits the frame. So again, you have to make a decision. Do you want to modify your header, or do you want to modify your frame, or both? So today I'm going to modify the frame. Wish me luck. Alright guys, so before we get under the car and before you start your header install, there's a couple other things you need to be aware of. My engine isn't put together yet as far as accessories go. If your engine is assembled on the passenger side, you're going to have to take out your dipstick. I'm sorry guys, I'm referring to a Pontiac motor. Chevy motors, Ford motors might be slightly different, but you still have to remove components and get underneath your car. Speaking of getting underneath your car, you're going to probably need 20 inches of clearance from the ground to the bottom of the car. Because when the headers go in, they go in at an angle, and if your car is right here, you need 20 inches to get there. So that being said, on your passenger side of a Pontiac engine, you have to remove your oil filter and housing. Don't think that you can just take this out and put the headers in with this, and you have to take this out, which is a whole nother topic. That topic is when you go do an oil change, you have long tube headers, you have to take this whole thing out. I'm going to do another video on that. I have a solution. In addition to that, you take your dipstick out. I can't remember if I said that already. And your dipstick on that side. On the driver's side, if you have a standard transmission, you have to take your Z-bar out. This is the manual. This is the Z-bar. It controls your clutch. I have a video I did when I first removed the transmission. Check it out. Go to that video if you want to remove this. It's not that hard. And then the other thing you have to take out is your starter. Put that aside. That's basically all your prep work we need. And now, when you get under the car, I want you to take one fastener for each side. Because when we hang these in the car, you're going to put one fastener in right here. So it's going to be hanging on that fastener. Then you go to the top of the car and put the other the front fastener in. If you have a Mr. gasket, it actually just slides right into the gap. You don't tighten them. And then we do finger tight, and then we can figure out our clearances. Now, like I said, my passenger side header fits fine. I can just bolt that in anytime. The difficult side is the driver's side. I already know where the driver's side hits. It's already marked on the frame. So we're going to get under the frame, and I'm going to decide how much material to remove, and we're going to go from there. Be right back. Alright guys, here's what I'm talking about. So you can see, plain as day, where the header hits, right here. So I am going to shave this down a little bit. I'm probably going to use a cutoff wheel and just start going across. There's a little mark here as well. On this side, right on top here, just a little bit. So that's our target area. Now those of you that have a stock GTO or close to it, this is where the brake line holder sits. So I had to move my brake line up here, and this is the same brake line I'm worried about because it touches right here. Okay guys, I put a little cardboard shield up there. I taped my starter hole. I taped the exhaust outlets on the heads. And my first attempt will be with a flap disc. It's going to take longer, but I'm going to have more control. And if that doesn't work, I'll just switch to a cutoff wheel. So here we go. Alright, change of plans. That's going to take a while. So I'm going to use a cutoff wheel and just go back and forth with it and then clean it up with the flap disc and see how that works. Alright, time for our first test fit. And remember, use one fastener on this back hole, and then I'll go top side and put a fastener on the far hole. Okay, remember I kept it super loose because we still want to stick the gasket in from the top side. The Mister gaskets have these little cutouts, so I can put the end bolts in and then slide it down. If you have fully covered holes, you have to do it right now. Either way. Alright guys, I don't know if you can see it, but right in here, this is where we're trimming. It's like a 32nd of an inch, so I still have some more to do there. And back in here, same story. So, these are rigidly mounted, but looking pretty good right now. So, one more round of shaving, I think we're good. Alright guys, there you have it. Unfortunately, that's my fuel line right there, so I'm probably going to put it, my TIG welding Kevlar finger in there, which would be nice. Anyway, cut out the corner of that, and I'm going to do one more test fit, and if it goes well, I'm going to clean it all up, and I'm going to paint this with Pour 15, which is my favorite sealant. So I'll be back. Alright team, so what I did was I cleaned up that area that was banging on the frame and sprayed some flame proof paint, so it looks like ceramic where it rubbed off. So I decided to wrap this area right here because it's right near my brake lines, and I'm going to go ahead and use this DEI wrap, but I'm going to make a separate video of that install. I'll leave the link below, but I wanted to save time on this video, so check that out and we'll keep going. Alright guys, here we go. So I taped the gasket on in spots where I can get the tape off, and be delicate if you're using a Remflex gasket because it is kind of pliable material. And we're going to start with the rear fastener. Your call if you want to put anti-seize on now or wait till all the other bolts are in and put anti-seize on it. I'm going to go ahead and do it now. So here we go. All right, finger tight on the back one. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll go on top and put the front one in, and then start adding all the fasteners, but don't tighten them yet. When you start tightening them, start from the middle, work your way out. If you're using a Remflex gasket, use 20 foot-pounds of torque. And I realize you can't get the torque wrench on every one, so it's gonna be a feel thing. Be right back. All right guys, we're in. We don't touch anywhere here either, which is awesome. Just so you know, I could only get a torque wrench on the back two bolts from under here and the front bolt. So once I torqued those, I went through and torqued the second bolt from the front using a wrench to get it to the same feel as the front bolt, and then I did the two middle bolts. So the good news is that's the hard one. The easy one is the passenger side, I'm gonna go ahead and bust that out. I don't have to video it, but I'll tell you the results as far as how many bolts I can get a torque wrench on, etc. Be right back. All right, guys, passenger side's headers are in. I was able to start torquing on this bolt with my torque wrench, this bolt, and the 2 back bolts. So basically, once I got that torqued, I tightened this one with a wrench, tightened this one with a wrench, torqued that one, torqued those 2, came back to the front one, and tightened it just a little bit more so I can get a feel for how much the wrench has to move. Seat of my pants, basically. And then I did the same feel on the rest of them. So I think we're good. All right, guys, headers are in. Oh my gosh, what a pain. And I know what I did to the frame is unorthodox, not typically recommended, because you'd want to put some nice cuts in there, weld in some more material, give you some structure, blah, blah, blah. I don't have time for that. I had to do what I had to do. So when I refer to a TIG finger, by the way, this is a TIG finger. Actually, put your finger in it, and when you TIG weld, you're preventing the 2,000 degrees going through your glove and your finger, so you can stay in one place longer. That's what I jammed. I have 3 of these. So I jammed one in to that hole to prevent heat absorption into the fuel line. That was my solution. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. So anyway, moving forward, the other reason that I have some geometry issues is that the Tremec sits differently than the Muncie. So it changed the angle of the engine, and oh man, whole nother mess I had to figure out. So if you guys have had luck with a particular type of header or manufacturer and it went well for you, leave a comment. What motor did you have? What headers did you go with? What car, what year, what make, what model? Leave all that detail below, because other people seeing this video are going to learn from you. And that's why we're here, to educate those of us that want to do this at home. All right? So subscribe if you haven't, because we still have to put the engine back together and get it running again. We're just getting close. So I have to do the exhaust next. And then the oil, remote oil filter I put in. You're going to like that. So you guys know the drill. Build them fast, drive them faster. See ya.